Greetings, I'm Paul the producer, and this is FitSpaz Recovery. You come here to see me when you want to get fit, healthy, and stay sober. And this week I have a lot on my mind. Let's see if I can talk and make this interesting. I just got done with my purposeful afternoon working out in the garage and yard again, staying very busy on Wednesdays. I got to this even later than I did last week. Didn't get a chance to take a shower. I'm rolling in the outside hemp t-shirt. That's how I do. I like inside out t-shirts. I used to wear my shirts inside out all the time when I was younger, and I would go to school in college and people would say, hey, you know your shirt's inside out? And I would say, what's inside out? And they're like, philosopher. And I'm like, yep. And so that's what I do. I wear stuff inside out sometimes, and not as much as I used to, but I want to get a little bit back to that. This shirt's made of hemp, and God, it's a nice material. It's so soft. I love wearing it to work in the yard. And some people who know me from my past might know who that is. I'll tell you, it's a shirt for a podcast, a now defunct podcast called The Potcast, an alternate marijuana radio based show that had a couple guys on it I really liked. I miss those guys, the good old days. Adam Dunn and Manny. What's up, you guys? Do you ever hear this? Did you think I'd be mentioning you on here? What is that in the middle of my... Oh, okay. This silly thing. It's got this square following my head around, like, IDing you. But you guys don't see it. You won't see it. So I'm just spinning my wheels right here. Anyway, out in the yard today, very busy sweeping out the garage. I swept tons of dust that has accumulated in the garage over the past couple of years because I haven't done it in a couple of years. And it's like, so I inhaled a lot of nasty dust. I threw some poison on some weeds in the yard. I pulled a few weeds, pulled weeds up from my some of my porch area, you know, where it grows out of the edges. It's amazing, the resilience of life. And so I'm just continuing my busy, purposeful summer of organizing and trying to rehab here where I'm living, because I don't know, it gives me a little pride. So I walk out to my car now and it's nice and clean out there. And while I'm doing that, I'm listening to Alex Jones, and it's amazing how much battery listening to talk radio on the speaker of your phone without headphones will eat up. And I don't know why. It seems like that eats more battery than using Bluetooth in my car. In fact, I'm almost sure of that. So I'll do that for hours and it'll like eat up the battery life on my phone and so forth. But I've been thinking a lot this week about all kinds of things. It's just been an interesting week. Still meditating, still working out, doing Body Beast. Let's see if you can see this. Do you see it? I don't know if you see it because I can't see. Oh, and when I turn my head around, I can't see if you see it. So anyway, yeah, I'm doing Body Beast. Still dreading doing bulk legs, but by golly, I got up yesterday and I did it for the third time. There's a total of 7 bulk legs in the bulk phase, and I'm 3 times down. I have 4 more to go, and so the reason I'm bringing this up is I love the improvements every week. I live for these improvements. I love it, seeing myself improve. So, like from week 1, I was so bloody sore from what I lifted, and I took it kind of easy from my peak of what I've lifted during this program in the past. And so what happens is I got super sore, and what amazes me is when I come back the following week, I lift more weight, I add resistance, and it astonishes me how I don't get as sore lifting more weight at that point. And what else was I going to say? And I heal more quickly. So what fascinates me is the adaptation of the body. Today, doing my back workout, I had a personal record of doing unassisted pull-ups. In the first set that I did 8. And some guys out there will be like, what, 8? Mind you, when I started, I couldn't even do a single one. And so it's improved a lot, and even subsequent sets are improved. Today I did 1 more than last week on every one of my sets. I think it was 7 in the second set and 6 in the third set. And then I did 5 additional when the whole workout was done. But just, it's really cool seeing that exercise improve. I can feel when I go like this, I'm like, I have a lat. I have a lat. And I mean, it's just kind of amazing to me. I enjoy seeing those improvements. That's what keeps me going. So it also makes me think, how far can I take this? So like, I want to keep going because I have all this momentum and I want to see how much I can improve. I started reading a new book called The Magic of Thinking Big, and that's pretty good. I don't remember the author's name, but so far it's pretty good. It's really consistent with things I've learned before. So it's a good refresher on various things, starting out talking about your belief systems about yourself and thinking big, not just thinking big, but how to get things done. And this is what even people think, like average intelligent people, if you think it's like thinking big, they can get average intelligent people noticed and have people think you're more than averagely intelligent. But I don't know. Anyway, I'm spinning my wheels again. I'm gonna try and move on. The personal development, and I consider fitness a form of personal development where, of course, there's also that physical benefit. I think it goes along with this saying, if you look good, you feel good, you do good. And so it also just day to day, when you see those improvements, it drives you to want to keep doing it and also really push the limits of my potential. I probably said it on here before. I heard Arnold Schwarzenegger in his autobiography that I read last year say, bodybuilding is like a 10-year journey. If you're really going to be hardcore about it, it's a 10-year thing to get to your maximum peak potential. So knowing that I'm only on my 4th round of doing this weightlifting stuff, I find kind of interesting. I know that I have to eat more. That's essential to me being able to achieve my potential. I'm in the bulk phase and I'm not eating enough. I should be having an afternoon protein shake every day, and I'm not doing that. I'm having a pretty good diet every day as far as getting calories in to maintain my weight. But if I want to gain weight, I probably have to add a whole other meal. And I'm like, huh. And I should be eating snacks before bed, and I'm just not going to do that. I get the backwash. You guys who've listened a long time, you've probably heard me at times be like, lately that has not been that bad. I've been eating a lot more salads. Like I said, this is the bulking phase. I shouldn't be having these carb-free lunches. I should have some carbs in there, but whatever. I'm very pleased with my increase in strength. That's really awesome. On Wednesday nights, I've been coming home from Marijuana Anonymous, and I've been doing this dance program called Size with Sean T, and I'm on this extremely hard dance program. I've done the first 3 and I can hang with those. I can do the moves and I can be in the groove and I can stick with it. But this 4th one is a substantial increase in difficulty and complexity. It's called In the Pocket. And I have improved subsequent times I've done it. So I've done it 3 times. Tonight will be the 4th time. And I've seen myself improve, but there are parts that are so fast that I'm like, oh my God. And I'm pausing it, going along through pausing, because the parts are just too fast. So there are these half tempo moments, and I will rewind and play those over and do it again. There's this part where the whole routine is done half tempo, and I'm going to do it again tonight. I'm just going to practice it half tempo, and I can tell I'm catching up when we start going tempo, but I'm still like off sync. God, if somebody who's a great dancer watched me, they'd probably be like, huh, geez, dude. But I feel the muscle memory setting in, and again, it goes along with what I was saying about personal development. It's really nice to see those improvements. And so I don't know why. I just started recording my podcast. I used to record my podcast Wednesday nights after Marijuana Anonymous, and I decided, no, instead I want to start doing this Wednesday afternoons so that in the evening I can do this dance program and eventually finish it out in terms of how many times you're supposed to do each routine in the program, and also get a little cardio-based activity in. It's not so hardcore physically. When the body gets pumping and moving like that, it's not so hardcore. I think just the circulation gets you healing and feeling good. All that's very good. So cardiovascularly, I like doing it, and mentally, it's just kind of funny seeing how bad I am, but also really enjoy those improvements, like I said. And so onward. Last night was an interesting night, and I'm not going to get into anyone's personal details at all, except to say that I went to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting because a friend of mine has had a year sober from drinking alcohol. And I'm totally glad because I was mortified for this friend. He had a very scary problem and I was worried about his well-being. There were times when I was dreading getting the call from his parents that something really grave happened. So he's been a year without alcohol, and I think that's amazing. And it was interesting seeing the differences in people at that group in contrast to the group I go to Wednesday nights tonight, Marijuana Anonymous. What I'll say about that is alcohol is one of those drugs. I really think that it leads to more criminal activity and more misbehavior, more of a gateway into dark behaviors than marijuana. And I mean, like, drug addiction can be this like snowballing thing, all things together, and you can be really messed up and lead a dysfunctional life. But alcohol in particular leads people to have a really depraved existence especially when they're out of control. I'm not talking about people who drink on weekends and they're not addicted and they know how to moderate their behavior and stuff. It just leads to a disaster for a lot of people. And I think I'm one of those people. I was not full blown screwed up, over the top, messed up, but it was enough for me to recognize, hey, this does cause distinct problems in my life. One of them being it triggers my wanting to smoke marijuana, which I definitely knew I wanted to quit, but also getting in the car and drinking and driving, having issues with my mood, not only the day after being hungover, but specifically 3 or 4 days later, I have what I call sledgehammer brain, which is like just morbid darkness, sadness, depression, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of people like go out and deal with that by drinking and getting high again and drinking and getting high again. And I spoke last night when I went, and so I said, I may be an alcoholic. Who the hell knows? Whatever, you can call me an alcoholic. I don't really care. I just know that in my context, it's about the consequences that made me decide to hang it up rather than the reality when I'm drunk. So like if I'm out with a group of people, it's not like I'm getting in fights or miserable. I can have a pretty good time, I think, but it's what comes after. Dealing with the recuperation is just over the top. And like I said, a top priority for me was quitting marijuana and not being tempted to smoke marijuana. Every time I've ever quit marijuana, I started up again by taking a puff when I was drunk or buzzed, and I have felt a profound level of temptation when I'm drunk to do that. I went out with my friend Jesse a couple years ago, I think it was now, had some drinks downtown, and this was when I had like maybe almost my 10 months in that particular year of not smoking marijuana. And I think he was annoyed because he said, dude, you're just obsessed with finding marijuana. And I was like, yeah, it's what happens when I get super drunk. My mind is just like, do that. He wanted me to hit on these pretty women, and I'm like, no, do that. When you'd think I would be way more into the idea of hooking up with pretty women since I was newly single and stuff. Emotionally, not ready for that at that time. Or now, I don't know. That's a whole other story. Like, one of the things I was talking to my buddy about last night, and this was not part of the meeting, this is not a big deal divulging this, I don't think, is being at a stage in my life where I just feel sort of comfortable with the idea of like, I don't have to be in a relationship. I'm not pressuring myself. I'm not feeling guilty about not being in a relationship. I I have this attitude, like I said last night, if you expose yourself to the mix of life, things eventually happen. You meet people, and eventually you just connect with somebody with whom you have a mutual attraction and stuff. So there's no hurry for me. And I know that I want pure magic in life. Which brings me to another topic, which is kind of interesting. Made me very reflective this week when I went into my office area upstairs, and it was all rainy outside, so I couldn't work in the lawn. So what I decided to do was clean out and organize my office. And I went through all kinds of personal items spanning the gamut of my life, all the way back to my childhood. Pieces of artwork where I drew stuff when I was little, like Porsches and cars, and they weren't very good at all, quite honestly. Interesting, but not so good. And love letters from all kinds of girls, all the way from being very little all the way up to in my 20s and stuff. Various women, periods of my life, pictures from all those different periods, and going through those pictures was quite something, and running into things I haven't seen forever, and having lived in this house for 16 years, and it's like I'm not like or rather I'm like, it hasn't been that long, but it feels like it's been but when I see these pictures now of when I was 21 and getting these pictures of myself taken with the guitar, actually I was about 25, I'm like, oh, 17 years have gone by, and I look so totally different in the face, with a full head of hair, skinny as a rail. We're talking like 6 feet tall as I am now, about, and 125 to 30 pounds in there. And so we're talking skinny, which reminds me, my aunt told me the other day I look so much better because of the weight I put on, but she's like, she has an Italian accent, and she's like, you looked sick. And I'm like, what? Okay. But doesn't hurt my feelings because she does think I look better now. My other Italian aunt last summer, when I ran into her, she said, you look like a man now. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll take that compliment, because I've filled in my face and I have a little bit more shape around my body. Okay, I'll take the compliment. I'm 173 pounds now, compared to when they're probably thinking of me around 130, 135 pounds, somewhere around there. So I was cleaning out that room, coming across all these old pictures, letters all kinds of friends have sent me over the years, looking at baby pictures, pictures of when I was a little kid, and I'm just astonished at the passage of time. It alarms me a little bit. It should be like a wake-up call, like, hey man, day to day, life may seem boring and like nothing's happening, but look at all this time that's passed, and are you getting what you need done? Are you accomplishing what you need to accomplish? And so I was doing this all day long, from about 1 p.m. all the way to 9 p.m. It was like a full-time work day, emptying this room out, taking things out I want to have in a garage sale this summer, and organizing all these various things, and just emotionally seeing those pictures freaks me out a little bit. The passage of time, finding these old sheets of paper where like these friends in college wrote their phone number, now defunct phone numbers, but still being like, finding a business card from when I was 21 from the very first guitar teacher I ever had. I was like, I'm really old. I wonder where that guy is now, because he was like an old man when I started that in what was like 1995, probably the spring of 1995, somewhere in there, I'm guessing. Sounds about right. So by golly, people, time is going by. Don't be fooled. And when it does go by, you're kind of like, damn it. And so I will often think, how am I going to feel? No, but let me relate it to substance abuse, okay? That whole period from like 21 to especially 33, drinking heavily. Not when I was in school. I kind of regulated it when I was doing my studies to the weekends. And it was like I lived for the weekend. But I wouldn't even go out and drink on weekends if I had to study for something coming up on a Monday or during the following week, or if I had a paper to write or whatever. Rarely would I not do what I was supposed to for school. So I kind of, I don't know, disciplined the behavior in a very functional way to get through school and do relatively well most of the time. I remember one semester in college when I was partying hard, and I probably got like a C average, and my dad was like, "Come on, dude. Like, give me a break." But and that was just that one semester. I certainly had semesters where I almost got straight A's because I had just decided that was my goal. And just because a couple teachers were a-holes, one in particular I can think of made it the goal that didn't get realized. Anyway, old jealous bastard. Anyway, bastard. Where was I going with that? Just substance abuse and relating it to time, wondering what my life would have been like. At that time, socially, it would have been so different if I hadn't been drinking and partying with people and smoking marijuana too, that being a big part of the bond with friends at that time. Friends who I still look back and admire them and cherish them, and for them putting up with me as an admitted weirdo. But going through all that time and then being in my young 30s and basically being in the period where I was at my peak with my drinking, like I admitted last night, drinking 3 or 4 times a week. If I wasn't smoking marijuana, I would probably have like 5 or 6 beers along with 4 or 5 shots of liquor. And if I was smoking marijuana, diminished, like 2 or 3 beers, 2 or 3 shots. And that's just the way it was for me. And wondering what my life would have been like if I had decided to tackle sobriety earlier. Would I have been more lonely? Would I have met? I certainly would have been on a different path, met different people, been doing different things. I don't even know. All kinds of things have changed, but it's just been a long, interesting journey for me, I must say. And I can't say, I mean, I don't regret doing that, having a life at the time, because I had a lot of good times. These experiences were accentuated and beautiful. I just think that the evolution of the habits becomes like a dark experience. The evolution of alcoholism. I could tell when I quit both drinking and smoking weed like within the same week in December, the middle of December, 17 months ago. 17 months and 5 days. That's how long it's been. And because at the Christmas holiday, being fresh off deciding not to drink and fresh off deciding not to smoke, I was around my family at my sister's house, and they were all drinking wine. And it was really, really tough for me not to drink a glass of wine. And I'm glad I didn't, but I recall how hard that was. And I'm also glad to see how much that urge and temptation has subsided so that I can be around stuff like that and just not give in to the temptation of doing it. But it's also a testament to, hey, there is a degree of alcoholism in me. Whether I want to admit it or not, I don't care. Like I said, I just have the realizations that I have, the life experience that I have, and that's what I finished when I was talking last night. I said, I'm Paul, and I'm kind of sort of a marijuana, or I'm kind of sort of an alcoholic, and that's sort of it. It's like how it feeds into other things, which is why I don't do it. But so interesting differences too between people who have troubles with alcohol. Certainly, I know people are like, they have family members who aren't happy with their given behavior, but I don't know why I feel like marijuana is inherently less serious, less dangerous, and yet people do catch a lot of flack from family members. However, I'm saying that, and I know full well that it has not been the best for me in relationships I've had with certain people, very specific people at certain times. I'm not gonna like sit here and say who, because it's private, and certain people would be like, oh, hey, he's talking about me. Why is he talking about me? And like, it is private. I would actually tell these people personally, and I think they'd appreciate that. But in a public venue, that's not where I'm going to admit it. However, because I can point to specific things like, oh, I remember, and you, and we, and I, and But just trust me. I think it's important not to delude oneself about your habits and what your poison is and what your difficulties are. Life is harder when you're deluding yourself. It's just so fundamentally important to be honest with yourself. And if you can't do that, you're gonna be like stepping back. You're gonna take 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards, as that saying goes. So be honest with yourself. How is it affecting people around you? And if you have a loved one and kids, and in a marriage too, it's vital in a marriage. Like, is your spouse really okay with you doing that? Just you doing whatever you want to do, living the way you want to live, or is there really an added stress? Because even if it's a tiny amount of stress every day, I think the resentment will grow over time and it will become a problem. I mean, like, when I think about it, one particular relationship I was in, I'm just talking about this one in particular, it probably goes for multiple, the same attitude. I wasn't always present. Like, so here's this person you care about dearly, and like they're talking to you and you're just like out of your mind, high or drunk, because that's what you do. And they're not that type of person. They're not a drinker or a smoker, and yet they're in that relationship for something, and you're not quite connecting. You're not on the same wavelength because you're in this inebriated state and they're in this sober state. So I wonder how sobriety would have affected relationships that were important to me. And I thought that earlier today. And I also thought, you know what? We go through what we go through in life, and some of it's for a reason. And if all those things hadn't happened, my daughter wouldn't have been born. And so I consider her, I go along in life and I notice certain things and I go, holy mackerel, that's like destiny right there. Destiny, behold destiny in my life manifest right in front of me. And she's one of the things I look at, regardless of hardship, regardless of all the bad things I've been through. A lot of the bad things I can look at now and say, if not for that, this good stuff would not have resulted. And my daughter's like the ultimate paramount example. But you also wonder, if I had been more wise, making better decisions, a sober person when I was younger, what I would have been down a profoundly different path. So what other compound changes would have taken place if I had decided to have that different path in my life? And so honestly, you can't like just take it for granted. Hindsight is always 20/20, right? As the saying goes. So I would urge people to really take stock in their life, think about their life, where you're at, and don't think you're too old or it doesn't matter anymore. Because even if you're 50 years old, you could have another 30 years left on this planet, 25 of those years extremely vital, with meaningful things you can do, change, goodness, you can bring to people's lives or the world around you. Don't underestimate that. I'm trying to see things like that myself. We never know when we're going to get sick or die suddenly for whatever reason. So it sounds cliche, but it is absolutely true. Okay, who gives a crap if it's cliche? If it has substance, by golly, it's so true. Cherish your days. Make the most of your days. And why not? It's important to stay busy. It's important to stay engaged with life. I'm going to start wrapping this up, because I've babbled on a half an hour here. I hope some of this was interesting for some people. I've been enjoying doing these. I have no format for these in terms of, I kind of come to it with like, okay, here, talk about this experience this week, what I'm doing and what I'm doing in this experience this week, related to the whole echelon of life philosophically, and blah, there you have it. Just one big, immediate, spontaneous mix of what I think. And who gives a crap if I'm the biggest star in the world, honestly? I'm not looking for fame. I would just like to build enough of I would just like to have enough traction with this to know that there are some people out there I'm helping. Not just one or two. I mean, it's wonderful if I help one or two people, but I mean, big enough to just have my build my own sort of good thing I have going on out of this, between fitness, between helping people stay sober, between a whole philosophy to the approach of life day to day in many ways. So that's what I have to say. I'm Paul, the producer. By golly, if you think this was interesting, that's awesome. That's awesome, dude. Or dudette, as my daughter likes to say. I call her dude. She says, I'm a dudette. And I'm like, darn these silly women for instilling that in her, because ladies of the right age, cultured ladies of the Generation X generation, redundant me, you know that saying dude is something women say to one another. They don't go, hey dudette, unless they're just being silly. Generally in conversation we throw it in there. Hey dude, lady. Hey dude, dude. Doesn't matter what you have in your pants. You're a dude. Okay? We don't need to gender dude. That's just my opinion. Anyway, if you enjoyed what you heard, you can always hear more episodes of FitSpaz Recovery by going to FitSpaz.com, or go to FitSpaz.com and you can see the videos. You can follow all the social media. I want to thank, of course, Kevin MacLeod, the super composer, who I use his music in the backdrop of this, and I give him a credit at the end for the use of that music. Go to incompetech.com. And that's pretty much all I want to say to you. I will be back with you next week. I enjoy doing these. I hope you're having a good week. I hope you're seizing the day. I hope you send me feedback. I hope you grow a set, men or women or anybody. I hope you step up to the plate, have some courage, and send me feedback to paul@fitspaz.com. Again, I am Paul, the producer. This is FitSpaz Recovery. Have a great week, everybody. Peace.